The patrol car's engine hummed softly in the dying light, its headlights cutting through shadows that seemed to grow longer with each passing moment. Officer James Rodriguez had seen it all in his 15 years on the force, but something about this particular evening felt different. The air was thick with an unsettling stillness, the kind that made veteran cops check their radios twice and scan every darkened doorway. Then it happened. A sound that would haunt him forever, the desperate, heart-wrenching cry of a child piercing through the suburban quiet like a knife through silk. His blood ran cold as he spotted her, a tiny figure in a torn pink dress, stumbling toward his car with the frantic urgency of someone running from death itself. Her face was streaked with tears and dirt, her small hands shaking so violently she could barely form words through her sobs. "Please," she gasped, her voice barely above a whisper, but carrying the weight of absolute terror. "You have to follow me home. Please." The desperation in her eyes wasn't the typical cry of a lost child. This was something far more sinister, something that made James's trained instincts scream that time was running out. Without hesitation, he abandoned his car and knelt to her level, but she was already pulling at his uniform with surprising strength for someone so small. "Hurry," she begged, her voice cracking. "We don't have much time." The way she said it sent ice through his veins. What was waiting at home that had this child so terrified? She led him through a maze of increasingly desolate streets, her bare feet slapping against cracked pavement as she glanced back repeatedly with wild, frightened eyes. The neighborhood transformed around them, from well-maintained suburban comfort to something that felt abandoned by hope itself. Streetlights flickered ominously, casting dancing shadows that seemed to reach for them with skeletal fingers. The silence was oppressive, broken only by their footsteps and the child's ragged breathing. "What's your name, sweetheart?" James asked, trying to keep his voice steady despite the growing dread in his chest. "Emily," she whispered without slowing down. "But we have to hurry. She won't wake up, and I can't make her wake up." The terror in her voice made James's heart pound harder with each step. When they finally reached the house, James felt his stomach drop. The small structure looked like it was dying, paint peeling like diseased skin, an overgrown yard that resembled a cemetery. And most unsettling of all, the front door hanging open like a mouth frozen in a silent scream. No lights, no movement, no signs of life. Emily pointed toward the gaping doorway with a trembling finger. "She's in there," she whispered, her voice now so quiet he had to lean down to hear her. "She's in there, and she won't wake up, and I don't know what to do." The raw panic in her words made James's pulse race as he realized they might already be too late. The moment he stepped inside, the smell hit him, stale air mixed with something else, something that made his trained senses scream danger. The living room looked like the aftermath of a struggle. Scattered papers, overturned furniture, empty containers strewn across the floor like evidence of desperation. Every shadow seemed to hide a threat. Every creak of the old house made him tense for what he might discover. Emily tugged him toward a narrow hallway that stretched into darkness like a throat waiting to swallow them whole. Each step echoed with the weight of impending discovery, and James found himself holding his breath as they approached a bedroom door that stood slightly ajar, revealing only impenetrable blackness beyond. His flashlight beam cut through the darkness, revealing a sight that made his blood freeze. A young woman, barely out of her teens, lay motionless on a mattress on the floor. Her skin was pale as paper, her breathing so shallow it was almost imperceptible. For one horrifying moment, James thought they were too late, that he was staring at a corpse while a 6-year-old girl watched. His fingers found her pulse, weak, thready, but there. She was alive, but barely clinging to life by the thinnest of threads. As he called for an ambulance, his hands shaking as he spoke into his radio, Emily collapsed beside her mother, sobbing words that cut through James's soul. "I tried to take care of her. I tried to make her soup, but I'm too little. I couldn't reach anything. I was so scared she was going to leave me forever." The paramedics arrived with sirens wailing like banshees in the night, their urgent voices and flashing lights turning the quiet street into a scene from a nightmare. As they worked over Sarah's unconscious form, Emily clung to James with the desperation of a drowning person clutching driftwood. Her small body shook with sobs that seemed too large for someone so tiny to contain. "Don't let them take me away," she whispered against his uniform. "Promise you won't let them take me away from my mommy." The raw terror in her voice revealed the depth of her fear, that this rescue might separate her from the only person she had left in the world. At the hospital, under harsh fluorescent lights that made everything look corpse-like, James learned the devastating truth. Sarah had been slowly dying while trying to keep her daughter alive, working 3 jobs, skipping meals, ignoring her own deteriorating health until her body simply gave up. She had collapsed from a combination of exhaustion, dehydration, and pneumonia that she couldn't afford to treat. "She's been unconscious for almost 3 days, the doctor explained, his voice grave. "If you hadn't found her when you did." He didn't need to finish the sentence. Emily had been alone with her dying mother for 3 days, too terrified to leave her side, watching helplessly as the only person she loved slipped away. As Emily slept curled up in a hospital chair, her small hand still clutching James's sleeve even in sleep, he made a decision that would change their lives forever. He couldn't let them return to that house of shadows and desperation. He couldn't watch this little girl's courage be rewarded with more suffering. Working through the night, James contacted everyone he could think of, fellow officers, local charities, church groups, anyone with a heart willing to help. The response was overwhelming, as if Emily's bravery had awakened something powerful in the community's soul. When Sarah finally opened her eyes 4 days later, weak but alive, she wept at the sight of her daughter's face. But the real miracle came when they returned home to find their house transformed. The peeling paint had been covered with fresh coats of bright color. The overgrown yard had become a garden. The refrigerator was stocked with food. The bills were paid, and neighbors they'd never met were lined up to offer ongoing support. Emily's desperate run through darkened streets had led to something beautiful, a reminder that sometimes the smallest voices carry the most powerful messages, and that even in the darkest moments, hope can emerge from the shadows to light the way home.